The conversation you are about to hear was recorded in 2020 during the height of the global pandemic. And now, Global Comedy Studios presents, Is This a Bad Time to Talk?
Okay, I'm going to try to call Janeanne Garafolo now, my friend of many years.
Hi, hello.
Hello!
It's so strange. The phone won't. Not only it wouldn't let me pick up until that ring, and I was saying hello a long time. That's very strange. I don't understand how that happened or why, but and I did a gag that was missed. It's really unfortunate. I picked up and said Domino's Pizza, and didn't work. Look what happened. The gag went into the ether.
It's there. Janeanne Garafolo. Is this a bad time to talk?
No, it's fine. Although, hang on, let me. The only thing is it's an awkward. I may not be able to talk that long because I have a bad back, and the landline is in an awkward place.
Okay,
it's
all right.
Behind the TV, believe it or not, because that's where our phone jack is, and so standing here because I'm gaining weight rapidly in my belly because I'm an classic apple body type like Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey. My back goes out when I gain weight because I refuse to strengthen my core. You know this about me. I've said it a million times. I just won't strengthen. I won't do it, Ollie. I won't strengthen it.
As a pear talking to you, I think I'm more of a pear than an apple. I thank you for taking any time to talk to me on this Sunday afternoon, April 26th, 2020, during the pandemic. If nothing else, you got the day and time. I've given you that.
Well, you know what? You're a pear. Let me go back to that for a second because pears get away with murder, and I'll tell you why. They just throw in a skirt, out the door they go, and no one's the wiser because they still remain slim from the waist up.
It's true. I hide it well, but I have to mention this. I just want you to know this phone call is being recorded. Are you cool with that?
No, absolutely not.
Click. Then click. There's an issue. All right, and it may or may not be posted based on my technical savvy, which is not good. I'm an old dude
You do with it what
tech.
you will, sir. You do.
All right.
You do what you will.
Now, I'm in New York City right now at an undisclosed location. Where am I finding you right now? Are you in New York?
In New York City, below 14th Street. That's all I'll say about that. Below 14th Street.
Below 14th.
Not far from the pit.
Oh, okay. All right. Walking distance.
Very much walking distance, yeah.
Well, I thank you for, during this time of crisis, being willing to take my call on a Sunday afternoon for whatever this is going to be, this podcast, phone call thing. But I was just so I need to make something. And then I just decided to, call people I knew throughout the years. And Kevin McDonald was willing to do one. And then I did one with Reed Birney and Fred Weller. I was like, I want to talk to Janeanne,
Well, thank you. Well, I think you should call, people should have a podcast called How You Holding Up?
Yeah, I like that.
The oft-texted, how you holding up?
Right. And how are you holding up?
Which makes me feel guilty, actually, because I feel like what they're saying is, how come you haven't asked me how I'm holding up yet? That's how I take it. But I'm holding up fine because I don't have children and because of the type of work that I do, which is not really, just doing stand-up. It doesn't, the only thing that is affected is that I can't do stand-up, because everything's canceled. I'm forced to use CVS makeup, which is difficult not to be able to go to Sephora. And let's see, my back going out because of my fat. Everyone also desiring to create insofar as there's many people who say they have a script and they want to do a Zoom read, but I'm technically unsavvy. I can't Zoom read with people. I can't do any of that because I'm not online and I don't have a smartphone.
Wow. Out of all the things that are intriguing to me about you, there's so much that's intriguing, but no computer, no email, no online stuff at all.
No, and nobody believes that, and they will think that I'm being dishonest right now because people in modern culture cannot get their minds around it. They will believe in ghosts and extraterrestrials and that the universe speaks to them, but they will not believe that I don't have email or use a computer. Now, my boyfriend, who I live with, has a computer, and when necessary, if somebody sends something or whatever, they will email him, and then he'll show it to me. But and it's not a noble thing. It's not me being cool or being noble in any way. It's just that I tried it for a while in the early and mid 2000s. It gave me a lot of anxiety. You know, I grew up without it. I was already a middle-aged lady when it really, really kicked in. I really held the line and didn't get a cell phone for the longest time. And again, it's not nobility. It's just the technology creates so much anxiety. And also because I'm not online and don't do all those kind of things, I get almost no spam phone calls because those things are connected, all the data mining and all that. And you know, your career will suffer and your social life will suffer. If you're okay with that, which apparently I am, you can live that way. Now, if I had children, it would be a different story. So, you know, I'd have to be connected.
JG, I take you at your word. I believe you when you say something. So
well,
I'm not one of those
you.
who says, I don't believe you. I believe you. I know you. I mean, right now, if it helps in terms of context, I'm talking on an old-timey black handset that I plug into my iPhone because it just reminds me of, like, you know, being a kid and getting to call a friend on the phone and then having to, like, get it as far away from that kitchen as possible, you know.
Depending on how long the cord is.
Right, exactly.
Right. This cord isn't long. Well, like I said, this is a landline, but it is in an awkward place with a very short cord. But I used to have a landline with a old timey phone that actually I purchased. It was at Urban Outfitters in the 90s. It's supposed to look old timey, so it wasn't really, but it was a phone of like that looked like it was from the 70s. That was not in an awkward place, and that was many years ago. But I think it's wise to have a landline if you can. For when the grid goes down and the solar flares and all that. It's just important to have a landline, and also for purposes like this kind of conversation. It's just, I think, a clearer connection, and you're getting less gamma rays from the cell phone while holding this type of phone.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate all of it, and I think, you know, as far as gamma rays and solar blasts, I think we're right there. But, you know, it's funny because I've known you since '99, I think, roughly.
Oh, I thought it was earlier than that. But
it might have been when it could have been because I may have come to see you. You know what? Maybe you're right, because I probably came to see UCB in the mid-'90s.
Yes.
And we probably met then when
That's
you were
where
doing
I feel
monologues.
like we did. Yes, I think we did meet at an ASCAT prior to '99 for sure.
Yes. Now you're right, because I was still in Chicago at the Second City, but I would come and visit them because they got here in the mid '90s, and you were one of the steadfast monologists, and we just got to know each other and just seemed like became fast friends. Or friendly. I mean, I don't want to
No, I think I agree with that, and I don't think it's overstated. I think we became friends right away, and we have stayed in touch since that time.
Yeah, but I'd never looked you up on the internet. But I was like, I'm talking to Janeanne. Let me just look her up on Wikipedia, just for this conversation for whatever research. But
to see what's wrong, what's not true on Wikipedia.
Yeah, I just wanted to find all the faults, the loopholes, the mistakes. I just wanted to kind of really dig in there for a gotcha question somewhere down the line.
Sure.
But I was amazed at the amount of work you've done. I mean, when you see it listed, it's prolific.
Well, it was a lot in the '90s. It's certainly slowed down, and most of the work that has come my way, acting wise, in the 2000s has been stuff that is very, very much under the radar. Like very low budget films no one ever sees, or failed pilots, or I did a couple British TV series, which was great. It's just that they haven't aired here. And then mostly stand-up, but because I don't have an online presence and because I don't participate in that world and I don't have social media platforms, it is as if one has disappeared. And a lot of times, I'll just be doing, one of the great things about living in the city between New York and the outer boroughs, you can do stand-up 7 nights a week once you're plugged into the scene, And so many times people will say, oh, you still do stand-up? Or what happened to you? Where have you been? It's... and I've done theater and stuff, but it's not anything that a lot of people know about. Now, if you see it listed, I suppose it seems like a great deal, but it mostly is unseen stuff since around 2002, I would say, for the most part.
But still, I mean, not only the voluminous nature of, how much you've done, but also like the pedigree too of like, the Ben Stiller show, Larry Sanders. I mean, some pretty amazing, iconic, seminal work. I mean, you can't, that.
Well, I got very lucky. I mean, I can't take credit for it. I just got incredibly, incredibly lucky in the 90s. Really, that is, I would say 99% of that is that I was standing in the right place at the right time and had met a couple of key people, Ben Stiller and Gary Shandling being two key people in the early 90s through stand-up. And then I benefited mightily from their kindness of casting me in their shows, and then it flowed from there. So I had a great deal of luck and a lot of opportunities for about 10 years, 20 years ago. And I'm not, excuse me, I just coughed into the phone. I am not ill, as far as I know, but it really was just complete luck. And then, as happens, sometimes the luck runs out, and I'm not really, and I'm not proud of this at all, a real hard worker, go-getter. You know what I mean? Like to really get your back into it, to do what is needed to sustain career success. If you don't sustain luck, you know what I mean? The hard work comes, and I am not a real fighter that way. And also, there's just only a finite amount of jobs to go around. I mean, that's 99% of SAG-AFTRA, right? Is people either unemployed or doing other jobs or doing jobs no one sees, that kind of thing. And that's just the nature of that type of business.
Well, I mean, I would have to say then that I feel myself profoundly lucky as well for the fact that our paths crossed in New York, and I'm able to call you and talk to you on the phone on a rainy Sunday afternoon. So, I mean, in that way,
I think you're overstating it, Ali.
Don't think so. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
you're being very kind.
Look,
you're being very kind.
I've known you since like the mid-'90s, but I mean, you are, and I don't want to take this the wrong way, you are Janeanne Garafolo.
Well, that's factually correct, but I don't know how much. That's very kind that you think that means something, and I'm flattered that you do. But it is, while you are being factually correct, it is a value-neutral statement. Although I do appreciate it.
Okay, all right. But you were doing stand-up 7 nights a week?
Oh, well, no, you can, there's lots of us that do. You can do here between, like I said, Manhattan and the outer boroughs. There is stand-up going on in clubs that are not comedy clubs, per se, in venues 7 nights a week. And then there's also regular comedy clubs like Eastville and the Stand and the Pit and, stand-up New York. There's clubs, and then there's also people doing shows at like the Shanty or the Loving Cup or Bell House, Littlefields. So, like I said, if you're here for years and you're in the scene, you can jump on these shows, and do more than one set if you desire, 7 nights a week. And then there's also road work. When you're not here, you're doing stand up on the road. So that is basically the bulk of my work. And then, so that's what's changed during the pandemic is those shows. Other than that, my life really has not been impacted because I don't have children at home and have to go to school, and I don't have a small business where I'm suffering economically or anything. So it's a great hardship for many, many people, and I am fortunate, I suppose, that it does not impact me. And because I was lucky in the 90s and made some money, I saved it. I mean, like I had a hunch this would not last forever, and I was fiscally prudent. So I am, as far as I know, financially secure. And like I said, when you don't have children and things like that, it's a great weight off your shoulders. I'm assuming, you have kids, you know what I'm talking about, and you have a business. So this is a huge hardship for you.
Yeah, it's a challenging time. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for the 4 bricks and mortar spaces we have, but I mean, I still count myself as among the lucky ones because I can take a deep breath. There's no one I really know in the hospital. I'm not making funeral arrangements, but I could end up losing the bricks and mortar spaces. But again, a phone call like this and a conversation like this wouldn't have happened without the virus. I wouldn't have been presumptuous enough to be like, hey,
you've got to be kidding, Ali. Are you making that up? Because you and I have texted before, and we've talked, and you could call me at any time. And now I don't know if this is you can edit this out for the purposes of your show. You are saying that, but
no. I mean, I know I believe that to be true, that I could call you or text you any time. But I'm just one of those who's like, I didn't bother them, I could, but I didn't, I don't know what it is, some sense of martyrdom of, and I don't think there's anything to be gained from it of like, he never called me. Thank you. He was one of the good ones, I don't know.
No, it's not like I said. It's neither here nor if people call or don't call or text or don't text.
Yeah.
I don't take it personally. Do you know what I mean? I guess I would take it personally if there was something where I had gotten in touch with someone and I needed a response or it was important that there was a response. Then that is impolite, sure. But and as you said, if we're going back to the pandemic, yes, no one is sick, but in your case, you have every right to say, I'm anxious. I'm anxious. I have my business and I have my children's future and I have, all of those things. It's not, you don't have to feel guilty or apologize if you were to admit that, yes, you're grateful that no one is ill. Now, beyond that, life is still happening and there are things that one must consider when they have families and businesses, things of that nature, that give them anxiety. And I think it's okay to discuss it if you would like to. I know you said you're here to listen, as am I, Ali. That's a two-way street. If you would like to discuss anything or discuss your anxieties, I'm here to listen.
Well, I am, I guess anxious is a word, curious is a word, of like how will this all play out? Because landlords are not playing around. For some reason in their mind, they're like, we want and feel like we deserve full rent. And so I don't know.
I think it's the nature of their job, unfortunately, with some exceptions. I think it is a particular breed of landlord that is this unkind. And, of course, they exist everywhere. And then there's some that give people a break. But there should be some installed legal loophole, some breathing room for people. That's just absurd to ask for rent and things like that when the business cannot function.
Yeah, I mean, we've been pretty much shut down since March 12th officially, but March 10th is when it began, where it's like this is whoa. And then March 12th it became official. And so they're all shut down. We still have a core team who's working from home remotely. We're doing online classes, trying to stay relevant, and wondering when we'll be allowed to open and what that world will look like. I mean, for the kind of stuff we do, we need audiences.
Right.
And it's, for at least, the live theater part of it. So whether that'll be a seat between every seat is empty, people have masks on, there's gloves. I don't know. I don't really know what that future holds.
It's one of those things where either there will be some new science or something that comes in that shows that this is okay or that's okay. There is probably inevitably going to be some easing up and then a little bit of a spike of people getting ill again. But I think that going forward, these types of things are going to become more normalized and happen more often in the same way with climate change. There will be stronger storms and more of them. It's just going to be the new reality of living.
Yeah.
So I would say get the Lysol. That's another TV series that someone could looking for Lysol because if you didn't hoard prior, there's not a lot of Lysol to be had unless somebody's price is gouging. Now, I don't know what it's like in other areas that are not major cities. Maybe life is actually quite normal for people in the certain suburbs or in rural areas. I don't know. But also, yesterday, I don't know if you were walking around yesterday, it was as crowded and, Washington Square Park was crowded. I walked over the Williamsburg Bridge. It was packed. now, and the news would show New York empty because it's a better story. But it's especially on sunny days because there's been so much rain, and I think it's psychological. People want to get outside when it's sunny, like yesterday. But the amount of people just living normally with and without face masks was, it looked like any other Saturday to me, anyway.
Well, I mean, I hope that comes back sooner than later. And we'll see. So, yeah. But when it comes back, in some way, you said, right now your work is generally you do stand up in New York in the 5 boroughs area, and you go on the road.
Yeah.
And where do you go, like, on the road? Like, what does, like, a week or a month or a year look like for you?
Well, it used to be when I was younger, I didn't mind staying out on the road for a long time. I don't like to do that now as I'm a 56 years old. I can't stand, a different place each night. So it will be something like if I can get like a good I like taking the train. Like if I can leave New York on the Acela and then hit Philly on your way to Washington, doing places on your way to Washington, little places like that, Arlington. I don't mind doing one-nighters that way, and then the other way, you get on the train and heading towards Boston, or you do Providence, Baltimore, things like that. And then I was supposed to be at the Edinburgh Festival for a month this summer. That was canceled. I was this last week supposed to be in Los Angeles, San Diego, Santa Cruz. That was canceled. I was supposed to do live from here on NPR. That was canceled. Just little, things like that. That's what it looks like. And the, San Francisco Sketch Fest, things like that, which did happen. South by Southwest canceled. Moon Tower canceled. So it's just, stuff like that. And I had been writing with my friend Anne Lanier, a pilot that she was working on, and that's done. So now what I've just been doing every day, just as a neuroplasticity exercise, if you will, is I'm writing a TV show as if it's going to happen, even though it's not happening, and also with no rules, no network notes, no nothing. I'm actually writing as if I have to hand in a TV series with episodes. In an ideal world, just the characters the way I would want them, what they say, things like that. So I'm actually just filling notebooks with a TV series that no one will ever see, just as an exercise to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I mean that to me represents hard work. I mean,
no, but it isn't. It's I'm saying it's something that I have that I'm just doing. I am impervious to any compliments, Ali. I won't take any.
Okay. All right.
And so you must stop giving them. And
I'll do my best.
I feel like it's just one of those things that I'm just doing. And like I said, the pilot that Anne Lanier and I did, which was turned in, it may, who knows, it's either going to do something or somebody's interested or not interested. It's one of those things. And for her sake, because she worked so hard on it, it was her idea, and she's a great writer and she deserves every success. I hope that it does go. I am I'm less inclined to be that excited about the TV series getting bought. I for her sake, I hope it is. There are certain things about it that wouldn't be my choice to do. Do you know what I mean? So I that's why I started doing this one. Like if I had no rules or no the structure had already been set in place by someone else, that type of thing. So I've just been doing that. But anyway, I don't even know. I'm so not interesting. I'm the worst person to talk to, Ellie. I'm sorry. There's nothing interesting about anything I've said to you. I think it would be more interesting to hear what you're doing.
I mean, I don't want to compliment you, but I mean, I like listening to you, and it's interesting to me. And I have questions, but I have questions from the perspective of somebody who's like not really in this business, but has done stuff. Like my questions are like, in terms of like these tours that you're doing. Because I guess, the people who may listen to this, if it actually records, if it doesn't cut off. Because when I talk to my friend Fred Weller, it cut off every 15 minutes.
Right. Well, it's like the Nixon. That's what happened with Richard Nixon. Remember the tapes?
Right. Right.
There's gaps.
So, I mean, I don't know if it's recording. We could just actually be talking without it recording.
Which is fine, and we're just having a
which
conversation.
Is fine. Right.
And you can write about it.
That's right.
And you should just repeat the highlights for those. Just tell people of the conversation. That's
right. And for those, and if it does record, then I got to figure out how to post it and where. So beyond that, there are those who maybe I represent those in, this kind of work peripherally who are like, you do a lot of stand-up and you're out there touring. Is that something like you have someone who helps you book those things, or do you got to do it yourself?
Oh, no. I have for the road stuff, I have a booker at Gersh.
Okay.
TJ is the booker. He does all that. For the local stuff here, it's just, texting, being in touch with friends. It's, you want to do a set on my show? Do you want to do this? That's all just, or like the shows I do at your club. Nate will just call or text and say, do you want to do new material night on Sundays at the Pit?
And it's interesting, that's the last time I saw you in person was when you were doing new material night at the Pit.
That's right. In fact, I've seen you, I think, there almost every time I've been there. But
well, by design, when I hear like you're there or Asif Manvi's there, I come out to say hello, because what's the point of being a part of a theater like the Pit when an old friend's going to come by and do a show and you don't go by,
Right, and I'm retrieving my Red Bull from your bartender from your little fridge, because there's nothing worse than a room temp Red Bull, and then you and I sit and chat.
That's right, and you'll be interested to know this. And it was interesting because we were talking last time at the Pit that Sunday, and you had your all your notes in Ziploc bags, which
because when it rains, but also it's easier to carry. Yes, I have all my notes in a Ziploc bag. I always do.
I love that. And then I ended up saying, I have this little tiny notebook. I put it in a Ziploc bag, I guess in honor of you, or like a life hack, But and then so we were talking, and we were talking about the bathrooms at the Pit and how I wanted to redo them and put word art.
Oh, Rev Jen, that's right.
Rev Jen. So you gave me Rev Jen's information. I contacted her. She came to the Pit. She looked at the spaces. She was like, let me draw something up. And then she said, let me put together some ideas and I'll get back to you. And then a person, I don't want to mention their name, contacted me who hadn't talked to me in a long while and said, it's an amazing thing you're doing for Rev Jen. And I was like, look, Janeanne gave me your number. We were talking. But when we talked, I realized they had a few drinks, and we got to talking. And today, that person texted me. They text me every day now. Today is day 64 in terms of not drinking. So that conversation that we had led to me contacting Rev Jen. He was talking to Rev Jen more regularly, texted me thanking me for helping Rev Jen. And then that led to me going, is everything okay? And then, I've been, I guess, almost like a de facto sponsor for him.
That's great. That's really
amazing.
Great.
It's amazing, like these little connections and what they lead to. And the people who ultimately, if I hadn't run into you that night, I wouldn't have found out about Rev Jen doing fine art. And then Rev Jen, eventually, after like 3 or 4 days, she was like, look, I'm going to bow out of this. I usually would take on more things than I can handle, but I don't have the time, so I don't want to lead you astray. And I was like, no worries. It was just like
that's too bad. Is it because her job? She has a lot of jobs too.
Yeah. I mean, whatever it was, she was like, I don't have the time, and I want to actually be adult about this and kind of say I'd rather just say no, thank you, than say I can do it and leave.
Oh, that's too bad. I'm sorry about that. I'm very thankful to you for getting in touch with her, and I wish.
Yeah, but it led to this guy though being sober.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Days. Yeah,
that's fantastic, and it's probably really difficult to be sober for 64 days now, because you could say, oh, who cares?
I know.
But during this, because a lot of people don't have to be someplace on time, and you've seen it. The lines outside the liquor stores are, with social distancing, are pretty long. People are definitely stocking up because they are living differently now, and you can drink more if you want, or your anxieties. Maybe it's more helpful. I'm sure there's people going one way or the other with fitness and with drinking. They're committing to be more fit or less so during this time.
I went towards the COVID-15 in the beginning, where I just,
was that like the freshman 10?
Exactly.
Yeah, the freshman 10. Exactly. That's the COVID. Yeah, that's where I'm at. Hence the back problem.
But I'm trying. But that's why I was like, I need projects. And then somehow when this thing came about, I was like, let me just make a list of people who I'd like to talk to regardless on the phone. And then if I can record it and other people can like learn from it, all the better. But you were saying like in an ideal world when you were talking about the thing that you're writing for yourself.
Yeah.
In almost like an Emily Dickinson kind of way, where you're just kind of like, I'm writing it for myself. This is about me.
Yeah, I'm just writing. It's just writing, and I'm having obviously the diet. It's without editing. You know what I mean? Like or this, that, other, or the rules that have been imposed from elsewhere or another person, or notes that have come back from some readers or prospective buyers of said show. It's just obviously it's to my taste, and it would be, well, if I could see this show or have these conversation, whatever it is, and it's just it almost starts every morning with an automatic writing exercise where I just will start each day with just certain ideas and see if they can be connected to existing scenes or existing characters, or would this character say that or whatever, or I start it's just like I said, it starts with automatic writing, and then I factor it into the existing body of the series that's being written for no one.
And how long can you sit at the loom, as it were, when you wake up?
At the loom?
Yes.
Well, it's funny because sometimes, honestly, 5 hours will go by.
What?
No. But then again, like I said, because I don't have these other distractions of like kids coming, whatever it is. And I'm not saying I don't stop for a cigarette break or something like that, but it can be like, well, wait, what time is it? And then there's sometimes, and I'll be on a roll, but if it is broken or disturbed or something happens, I'm then done, which is really frustrating. Like I can be, quote unquote, in the pocket, in the zone, going. Something will happen. It could be a small thing. Maybe I'm asked a question, or or I have to take a break to do a phone call or just do a certain thing. I cannot get back in, and it really upsets me. And it's one of those things where I'm either fully in or absolutely out of it, and it's not even worth it to me to try and get back into it. But there's sometimes where 5 hours can pass, and then sometimes I'll have a really productive 24 minutes, and then it's done. I always have my notebook on me because I write everything out longhand also, and I can be walking, like say I'm just walking just to walk, because I don't have any hobbies, but I would say the only hobby I have is walking, and I'll just be writing while walking, and a lot of the process is not dissimilar to my stand-up process, which is just scraps in a Ziploc bag. There's a lot of Ziploc bags full of bits of dialogue or character descriptions or subtext, backstory, future episode ideas, things like that just exist in Ziploc bags. Now, this is obviously a problem. Like Anne had that problem working with me, my friend Anne Lanier, who's a wonderful, like I said, wonderful discipline writer. It is very difficult to work with someone who works like that. And so that's why after, the pilot was handed in, I decided to do this way on my own, because it's very, understandably, very hard for anyone I collaborate with to deal with someone who works like that and then tries to piece together a Ziploc bag full of things, especially if you're not in the same room. Like when we could be in the same room, Anne and I, we could talk through certain things, and it's very fast and it's much easier. It is very difficult on the phone, and also it's difficult if you don't have FaceTime and things like that, which I don't. You know what I mean? So it's and I fully understand that. I fully understand why Anne can become frustrated with that, and that's also why I've done this. It's like, so I'm just on my own doing this. I don't have to. No one else has to suffer with my neo-Ludditism or with my particular process, and so I do work on it every single day, 7 days a week. And like I said, some days are much, much better than others. And on days where I get nothing accomplished, I'm very upset with myself. Like when it's very unproductive day, even for this theoretical series, it upsets me. How's that? See how long-winded I am? I'm incapable of getting to a point succinctly and with clarity. That's another issue. My writing is similar. It goes on and on and on.
Here to listen, but I have a few questions.
Sure.
Your stand-up, essentially, from what I've seen, you from the scraps and materials, you have an idea, you take that idea, and then you just run with it. Am I right in that?
It's sort of, yeah. It's nothing is locked down. Now there's certain things that get locked down accidentally because I've stuck with them for a long time, and there's other things that because I have every notebook, basically stand-up notebook since 1985 in storage, and some are here in cabinets. It's always been that way. That it's just bullet points and buzzwords and shorthand for what I want to discuss. I always leave it open if something new comes in that evening, whatever. Then there's some things I retire, and then I'll think of a better way to say them much later, and I'll go back and retrieve it, or I'll attach something new to it, and then it works better. But I always like it to find itself on stage, so it's not like hard and fast jokes. I'm not a strong joke writer. It's more just talking, excuse me, and hoping that it is humorous. And it's not always a coherent narrative. Like it sometimes just zips from different places, and then I'll bring it back around again if I can. I actually have a much easier time doing stand-up for an hour than I do for 10 minutes because of this. So on the road, it's a luxury. If I'm at a venue and I get to do an hour or two, if I desire. I'm not saying it's great for the audience. I have no idea. It's just that it suits me very well to work that way. What was your question?
Well, that's part of it, but you're as natural as anybody I know on stage, because who you are off stage really is basically who you are on stage, except with a mic or.
Right, but that's years of doing it.
Yes,
it wasn't always that way. I wish I had been, and because the limited, thankfully limited amount of footage of me doing stand-up, because when I started, it wasn't a surveillance society, and even in the 90s when I was doing well, there's not a lot of footage. But I'm not completely me, and it embarrasses me, and I'm glad there's not a lot of it, but I hate that there is some of it. It takes years to be comfortable in your own skin on stage. At least it was that way for me. It took 4 years before I didn't have to do shots before going on stage, because my hands would shake. That was 4 years of open mics and doing stand-up. And it took 10, I would say, easily 10 to 12, till I was me, fully me. Not that I was ever doing a character or anything, but I wasn't completely me. I was still self-conscious and trying to be cool, and it's terribly embarrassing.
And when did it begin? When was the first time you started doing this? But you obviously must have been someone who always held people's attention, a conversationalist.
No, not at all. No. It's someone who wants people's attention for sure, needy, sure. And I think it stems back from my parents loving the shit out of us. Honest to God, as if we hung the moon. And then always searching for that. If I can intellectualize it, and I'm not positive this is why. I just, my God, we can do no wrong. Now, that's not the case at school. You certainly learn the hard way quickly that not everyone holds you in the esteem that your parents do. And if you're lucky, if your parents hold you that way. Actually, they did a little too much in my case. But and then also combined with that a love of stand-up comedy, and from a young age, because my older brother had all the comedy albums in the early 70s that people had, George Carlin, Cheech and Chong, Albert Brooks, that kind of thing. And my parents had Nichols and May, Bob and Ray albums. And I would just listen to them all the time. And then HBO came to be early, and they had not a lot of content, and a lot of it was stand-up. So then I became obsessed with that, and then in 1975, SCTV and SNL came on, and I was lucky enough to have an affiliate that aired SCTV, and I became obsessed with SCTV, not as much SNL, but I liked it, and then Albert Brooks and Woody Allen, just these movies, and then the Ruddles. I don't know if you remember when the Ruddles came out, Monty Python.
Absolutely.
All those kind of things just really, really excited me growing up more than anything else. And I would just, I was passionate about it as a fan. And then Letterman came on when I was in high school, and I thought, oh, how do you get a job writing for Letterman? Can I be a page at NBC? Now, of course you can't. You got to be so well connected. It's insane to be a page at NBC. And then I briefly thought, well, I don't know if I want to go to college. Maybe I'll go maybe to Chicago, Second City. And my dad was like, absolutely not. Because my mom didn't go to college, and my dad was the first to get past the 8th grade in his family. So their whole world was built around their kids going to college. There was just no other way around that. And so then I just went to college and then started doing stand-up in my junior year of college, gave up the idea of writing for a show because it was clear early I had no discipline for that. And so just started doing stand-up in 85 and then kept doing it.
And so can you take me to the point of like that first night, how it happens that you decide to get up on stage at an open mic, I would think?
It wasn't an open mic, really. And actually, it really bothers me when people pretend they do stuff on a dare. I'm sure you've heard that old myth.
Yeah.
And it makes me want to punch somebody. Oh, I did an open mic on a dare. I auditioned for this on a dare. Nobody does that on a dare. It must have been in your mind. It must have been, you know what I mean? Nobody, apropos of nothing, does it on a dare. Now, maybe the dare was, you've been saying you're going to do this, do it. That's as much as I'll accept from people claiming the dare story. And I don't even know why they say it, if they think it makes them seem more naturally talented. Whatever it is, it's just bullshit, that dare. It's somebody doing something on a dare. And they had no interest whatsoever prior to that dare for singing or stand-up or acting. It's just such a load of shit, and it drives me nuts. It was not a dare at all. It was, I had been seeing what was going on open mic-wise in Boston and Rhode Island, because I was at college at Providence, Rhode Island, and it was that mini boomlet of comedy that happened again in the 80s that went from like 83, 84 to like 94, 95. Because comedy had been huge in the 60s. It has these brief spurts and goes up and down. And so I just didn't have the courage to do the open mics. And then finally I went to Periwinkle's in Rhode Island, where they were doing a show which wasn't strictly an open mic. It was a thing, though, that you signed up for, but on the theory that you're not an open micer. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like the slots, and I benefited from tokenism. I think I was one of the only women that signed up. And maybe somebody felt like filling a quota or something. And so I had pretended that I had done other open mics. I hadn't. And I went on stage, and I was drunk, and I had written some notes on my arm in pen. And somehow that seemed very funny to the audience, because it was authentic, because I was authentically, for the first time ever, looking at my arm, and maybe they thought that I was doing that character really well of a person who's, do you know what I mean? Somehow, because of its authenticity, it worked very well that first time. I did very well that night. And then, unbeknownst to me, Showtime was... Some Showtime people were in the audience because they were doing something, going across America looking for the funniest person in Rhode Island, the funniest person, blah, blah, blah. And this sounds like a lie, I was awarded the funniest person in Rhode Island that night. Now, that's a testament to how shitty the other comics were. That is not a testament at all to me. But I guess because there was something different and authentic about my stand-up that night, about me talking about how I was feeling and about the stuff on my arm, that it somehow worked very well. I also just looked like a young college student, and I guess that intrigued somebody at Showtime, and they asked me how old I was. I was 19, so they awarded me that night, which really meant nothing, but it was it allowed me to somehow get sets start being able to do some set time. Now I started tanking it every night after that. I only did well that first time because I just never did well again for a very long time. But because I just wanted to pursue it, and I'm a real quitter ordinarily. Oddly, I just didn't quit that for some reason, and spent a great many years bombing. Now, what sustained me was finding other comedians that I thought were funny, and they thought I was. I met David Cross and Laura Keitlinger and people like that who were sort of doing stand-up in a similar way I was. They were at Emerson at the time. There was a handful of people that were doing not jokes, and we sort of started hanging around together and supporting each other. And there was a couple of bookers that tended to like that for some of their venues, so that sustained us. But in the main, we would tank all the time, and it was very hard for us to succeed at clubs. And then I started doing NACA, National College Association, gigs where you sent a VHS tape in, and then you would get booked at colleges around the country, and it was a lot of road work, and it was a lot of money. And it just kept going. And then I guess just not quitting was helpful, and always being a handful of people that tended to like the type of stand-up I was doing or the way I was doing it, but certainly the majority did not feel that way. And I was fired from a great many clubs and things like that. And I don't know. And then it just I don't know. And then, like I said, the biggest break was meeting Ben and Gary, which afforded me a great many stand-up opportunities, many of which I did not deserve at the time. And so that's that.
And how did that? I mean, to me, you're a stand-up, and someone who I feel could go into any club, and if you showed up and said you want to do time, they'd be like, of course.
Oh, and I don't know if that's true. And also, at one time it was more true than others, but I also don't believe in doing that, just showing up. Now, if I have ever done that, I don't remember it, and I was drunk, but I really can't imagine I would do that. There have been times where I've stopped in and said, if there is time at the end, can I do it? But I will not allow people to be bumped. I won't, Now, I know there's some comics who are very decent people otherwise. They don't do that. They will show up at a club and do 40, 50 minutes bumping people who've been waiting to go on a long time, younger comics who don't get a lot of stage time. I don't believe in that. And they'll say, well, it happened to me when I was younger. But you hated it, so why are you doing it? And if you're gonna just show up and bump somebody, don't do 50 minutes. It's I think very unfair. And like I said, these are otherwise very decent people. In this one area, they really fall short, I think, manners wise.
But where does this sense of politeness and justice and the right thing to do? Where is this from parents, or is it just?
Oh, well, I don't know that I would say that politeness. I as I've gotten older, I have actively tried very hard to live that way. I wasn't always that way. I'm sure I was just young and stupid and dumb and drunk and ill-mannered. Now I have always gravitated towards the politics of those that believe in. Not always, actually. I should say after I discovered Howard Zinn and stuff in college, when that was Noam Chomsky, when I shook off the conservatism that I was brought up with, very religious, very conservative. When I got out into the world and met people that weren't like that, and actually a lot of it happened through music. What is called alternative music now was called like college radio or left of the dial. There's like a great scene in Rhode Island and Boston of these indie bands and stuff, and you tend to meet interesting people through that. And my taste in music ran that way. And I managed to hook up with people that knew things about Noam Chomsky and Howard Zinn and J. Krishnamurti and Dr. Viktor Frankl and Gustave Le Bon, things like that. And through their pushing me to educate myself that way, it grew. And it is. There's been times when it's been woefully inadequate, but as I've been sober and gotten older, I have actively tried very hard to do that. But it doesn't always come off that way. It's easily misunderstood, especially in the political area, when you're politically activist and it goes public, it's deliberately misunderstood sometimes. Sometimes people manufacture things you've said or your intent, but so it can be a real drag in that sense. But I feel like personally, it's all we have, integrity-wise. It's all we have. And it's something I do try and do, but it shouldn't be applauded for it. It's the least anyone can do. It's like when people say, "I put my family first." I put my kids. Really? That's so extraordinary. You put your kids first. You must be a real special person. I just find it odd when people say so and so puts their family first, or when they have kids and like, I realized it wasn't all about me. You just figured that out now. I just find phrases like that strange. Now, having said that, I realize it's not as easy for some people who haven't had the advantages, haven't grown up with loving parents, haven't had, in a nice middle class existence in a nice suburb. It's not as easy because they have not, they were born behind the 8 ball. I understand that. I fully understand that. What I do not understand and I do not accept and I'm not as open to is right-wing nonsense and the alt-right or the Republicans and the whole Republican Party at this point. There's no defense for being a Republican. I would have said that's true since at least Nixon, definitely during Reagan, and during Bush 1 and 2. But for now, especially at Trump era, there is no defense. There's not one cogent explanation you could make to me for identifying as Republican. And I don't accept that. I don't accept the fake protests of people saying you got to open business. I don't accept the Tea Partiers during the Obama administration. They were just racist. I do not accept, and I don't have an open mind about that, nor should I be obligated to, because I feel like there's not two sides to every story politically. There's two sides to some stories, but there's not two sides to every story about social justice and people's rights and things of that nature. Anyway,
well, hopefully this time, sheds a light on the safety net that we thought was there is really not there. But I mean, I don't want to,
Which safety net is that?
Well, I guess this kind of this belief that capitalism, was this system and that people were going to be taken care of because of unemployment, because of, social
Well, that
services.
hasn't been the case for years and years. I mean, again, conservatives and Republicans have been chipping away at that idea of the safety net for years, but certainly right-wingers have been chipping away since the New Deal, since Roosevelt. They still, there's, since the social safety net, such as it is put in place in the 1920s, 30s, what have you, 40s, for those lucky enough to it wasn't always that way for people of color. But the social safety nets that had been put in place, and the progressive movements since the 1800s, the right wingers have done nothing but try and roll that back. But especially the New Deal, and especially Roosevelt, or any strides that any progressive will make, a Republican will undo it, or a conservative will undo it, and of course Democrats tend to, for the most part, allow them to do it. Democrats continually allow right-wingers to roll right over them and continually don't contest elections. I don't believe a Republican has won legally since 1968, and that's not tinfoil hat stuff. I believe that to be true through gerrymandering, voter intimidation, things of that nature. I think that Republicans have taken districts and elections that they have not won legally since the late 60s. We better stop talking because my back hurts and I can't imagine you're still listening.
I am, but I want to ask just a few more things. Like you mentioned, these things you mentioned, like Ben and Gary, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, you're saying like, yeah, I met Ben and Gary, but it's Ben Stiller and Gary Shandling, and for someone.
Oh
like
yes,
me,
I'm sorry. I thought I said that.
No, I know.
Ben Lieberman and Gary Gary Schwartz. No, Ben Stiller and Gary Shandling, who I met through stand-up in Los Angeles. Well, Gary was a stand-up.
Right. But I'm saying,
and I guess we happened to a few times he would be working out material at the Ice House, in California. This is in the late 80s, early 90s. There was times before I moved to LA where I would go to LA and stay with my friend Liz Winstead or Dana Gould and do sets. And a couple of the times, Gary Shandling happened to be there, and also Judd Apatow, who I had met, was very supportive and had mentioned to Gary to watch me. And so it was just luck. It was just luck. And then Ben, I think, had seen me do stand-up in New York, and I had seen his show, The Ben Stiller Show on MTV in the 80s, and I was a fan of it. So then one night we were at Cantor's Deli in Los Angeles, maybe 89, 90, something like that, and I just went up to him and said, "Oh, I like your show," and he said, "Oh, I like your stand-up," and then we just became friends. And that's how that happened.
And with the Gary Shandling show, had you taken acting classes before that?
I had not. That was my first acting. Actually, I wound up shooting both those pilots in the same year. And the Shandling pilot, I think, was like a few weeks before I shot the Stiller one or something like that. But the first acting I had done was on the Larry Sanders Show, and thank God Gary Shandling, who was the best boss I ever had and the kindest steward, and I think wanted me not to know how to act. You know, I mean, I benefited greatly from him wanting, I guess, in that role for some reason, somebody who wasn't a good actor. I don't know. Just he wanted him more naturally, wanted somebody to improvise, things like that. Now, I learned the hard way as I got other acting jobs. That's not the way it is. They don't welcome your improvisation. They don't welcome the collaboration, things like that. Now, many, many years later, I have learned more skills to acting and tried to become a better actor. And unfortunately, there's sort of nowhere to put it. You know, I've learned a great deal from doing theater, and I've enjoyed it. I've learned a great deal just from trying to educate myself about acting, like, you know, from watching others or reading books or just seeking advice. And I feel like I have so much more skills now, and yet know where to put them. And I wish I had been mature enough, wise enough, when I was getting all these acting opportunities to do that work. You know, to educate, to try and learn how to do it better, to be more disciplined, to be more mature about it, to be more open. Just build the skill set, which I didn't do. I just kept getting jobs in the 90s, and I really, really regret that I was like didn't think to do more versatile things, because I kept getting offered the same thing. I guess you know, that character of Paula on the Larry Sanders Show was like the template, and even though I'm not like that, that became how I was perceived and cast.
So you never took any acting, like you never had like an acting teacher or acting classes like in LA?
No, I
New
was
York?
asked to go to
Wow.
when I was doing Reality Bites. Ben suggested I go work with his acting coach, and she ran a class in Venice Beach or something, and I went to one and left at the halfway mark. I just was not mature enough or comfortable enough to do it. They were doing all kinds of things at the time I thought was stupid, like acting exercise, like being an animal or doing things, or mirror exercise. And because I was immature and didn't want to do it, I scoffed at it. Not scoffed at it in front of anyone. I didn't tell Ben that I never went back, and because he was so busy directing and starring in a movie, he didn't find out that I didn't go to those classes. And then I sat in on an acting class once that Liz Winstead was taking in Los Angeles, just to see what it was all about. And again, I just felt it wasn't right for me. And it's not a criticism of anybody who does it. And like I said, I wish I had done it. Now, I do think there's some bad habits to be picked up if you don't get the right acting class or the right teacher, because sometimes you can see people acting and you can see they just take it too seriously, and I don't know how helpful that is. In the same way that staff writers for network TV series pick up so many bad habits in the writer's room, depending on who's running the writer's room or how hacky the network is. You can really learn bad habits, writing and acting-wise, unless you really get lucky and either break out of that or you have a mentor that really speaks to your strengths and tries to dissuade you from the more hackier instincts. But like I said, I probably learned the most from doing theater. It's and just watching people I admire a great deal, see how they work and what they're doing and how open-minded they are. And they're not afraid to look stupid. They're not afraid to, really commit. And I admire that. I wish I had, like I said, been smarter and more mature years ago. But I was stupid and I wanted to be drunk all the time.
What made Gary Shandling such a great boss and mentor and steward and shepherd?
Well, as I said, part of it, kindness. He was hilarious, easygoing. At least with me, this is my experience with him, and I think, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm assuming I never saw him, at the Larry Sanders Show, be anything other than a very kind, supportive person. Now, he's had his neuroses and things like that, but he kept it to himself. I have no idea what he was like in the writer's room, anything like that. But for me, he, for whatever reason, was just particularly kind to me and seemed to really encourage, he encouraged my stand-up. He encouraged my choices, I guess, acting-wise, or my instincts, or my improvisational instincts. He seemed pleased. Or at least that was his genius, makes you feel confident, happy. It goes a long way when people seem to believe in you in those areas or allow a collaboration. Now, they may not use your ideas, but there's something that feels real good about it, and it inspires confidence, and you get better work out of people. Then there's sets where the exact opposite is true, and I think it really shows. You know what I mean? When you know what I'm saying. But Gary, he was also funny. He just made me laugh a lot, and his dressing room happened to be next to mine, and he was always doing pranks and things like that. And it was probably the best first experience you could have. And then the Ben Stiller Show was equally as good because I already knew everybody. We were friends, and it was fun. So the jobs after that were not always like that, but the first two acting jobs I had, I was lucky enough to have those two experiences.
Earlier you were talking about you're writing this thing for yourself, just to kind of, to have something to do and write. And you said something in terms of in an ideal world. So what would your ideal world look like? Or maybe you are living the ideal world in terms of.
Oh, no, the ideal world of like a TV series? Like when somebody would say.
Of life.
Oh, no. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, I thought an ideal, golly.
Like movies, a series that you run and you're the EP on, doing,
just any. I guess the idea. I guess that you're asking me in an ideal world, career-wise, for me at this point.
Yeah.
It would be that just access to opportunity. That would be ideal for me. Not saying anybody should give me anything outright. Access to opportunity would be my fantasy of, you can go audition for this, or this person is willing to see you for that, because it's very difficult to even get that access. Now, this is an elective profession, so complaining about it makes no sense. Nobody makes you do this. In an ideal world, I guess it would be access to the type of projects that you would want to do, that you could be proud of, that really exciting or creatively fulfilling, or you really admire the work of people working on them. Or ideally, if I'm writing something that somebody would say, I don't have any notes, go ahead, here, well, accept this as you have turned it in. Unless, of course, there is some really great constructive notes that I'd be like, yeah, I never thought of that. That would be ideal, but I guess ideally, I wouldn't be a fat fuck who was 56 years old. Ideally, that would be personal. That was a dog toy I just stepped on. Yeah.
Like when I was talking to my friend Fred, and we were talking about, I was like, one of the things I'm always curious about is this ideal world and, this intention. And I said, do you want to be a fake doctor? Do you want to be a fake cop? And he's like, no, I'd like to be a fake lawyer on a show in New York City because both my parents were attorneys. So is there like, a fake something you would want to be in terms of, what I'm saying?
Employment, like acting-wise? No, I don't know.
No, not
I know. Actually, I do have something.
I'm saying like in shows and such. Like Reed Birney said he didn't care what the role was. It was about.
Here's what I would like. Yeah. Here's what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Ideally, the role.
Yeah.
on a series that's not on a mainstream network, but that shoots in New York, walking distance from my apartment. My character wears scrubs or sweats always. Does not wear. That's a character doesn't wear makeup or have to brush their hair. And for whatever reason, the character only works every other day. And for whatever reason, they never need me before 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That I'm being 100% sincere with you when I say that is the dream for me.
And that's why I'm laughing, because it's truthful. You know, to me, funny is a byproduct of truth. So whenever I laugh, I only really laugh when something is truthful and authentic. You know, and so, you know, and again, I mean, I can't help having a comedian's mind. So there's a piece of me like that thinks, well, how far a walk? Are you willing to walk 45 minutes?
Oh, I'm a walk. I'll walk far. Actually, because as I mentioned earlier, I love walking. Truly, it's when I love to do it. It doesn't, and I walk to Brooklyn constantly, which is actually easy. You just either walk over the Manhattan Bridge or the Williamsburg Bridge, depending on where in Brooklyn you want to be. But that's nothing. I do that all the time. I've walked to Queens. I walk over the 59th Street Bridge. I love it. So it doesn't have to be close walking distance, but walking distance, or I guess, or Chelsea. It would be fun also if it was like in Chelsea Piers, because I actually have visited friends who in the 90s had shows at Chelsea Piers where I kind of like to set up like Oz. I had some friends on Oz, and they have the sets on Oz on one floor, the writers' rooms on another, and everybody's dressing room on another. There's something great about that. It's all contained. And also, on your downtime, it's a great area to hang out in and walk around in. There's lots to do. That would be a dream, working at Chelsea Piers on that type of set where the writer rooms are right there, and it's an intercom system. You can be in your dressing room, and on the intercom it says, so-and-so, we need you now, and then you just walk down the stairs. Fantastic. And then there was fire escapes and a roof access for smoking. That is like, I never forgot that. When I was there visiting some friends in like 97, something like that, and I was like, oh, man, that's fantastic. That would be great. And, of course, they get to wear clothes that are, or like on Orange is the New Black. They're wearing those orange scrubs. That would be phenomenal to wear scrubs.
That's part of, I mean, as this thing, you're like the fourth person I've spoken to. And so as this thing is evolving, one of the things I love to do is like, get to help someone, like, what is that vision? For Kevin McDonald, we came up with a show for him called Chubby Kid with a Drunk Dad, because that's part of his story. And then for Fred, it was New York DAs, where he got to play a DA in New York City, I guess
mine would be, can I walk? Not before 2 p.m., Not before 2 p.m. That's the main thing, because also I'll work all night. I don't care. I don't give a shit at all. I'm a night. It's getting up early in the morning that really bothers me with an alarm. But I'm happy to work until 6, 7, 8 a.m. That's fine with me. It's just getting up, because sometimes when I've been on shows like Criminal Minds, whatever, and then it's a long way to the location. Unless I would have to get up at 4:30 in the morning to be there by 5:30. That to me is just I hated it. Now I don't mind working straight through until 5:30, 6:30 in the morning. If you're starting in the afternoon, I love that. I like working at night. I don't like the early morning call and I hate hair and makeup. I cannot stand, not the people, I don't like sitting in the fluorescent light room having makeup spackled on your face and your hair ripped out of your head and flat ironed. And also, because I hate the way I look, and it's not me saying poor me, I just happen to hate it, I don't want to sit in front of that mirror. Now, luckily, I can't see without my glasses, and I never had LASIK, so it's a blur. But eventually I'm going to have to put my glasses back on. And now with HD, which is a scourge on humanity, I fucking hate it. And I think, especially after the age of 20, the more makeup you put on a face as it ages, it's worse. It's a flawed paradigm of still spackling all this shit on a face that's older. You don't need it. It looks worse. HD looks horrible. And also, everybody doesn't have to have their hair smoothed and flat ironed and shit like that. And I feel like it's a sign of a quality show when you see that people look more natural. It means that the producers are taking it seriously, the writers are taking it seriously, the directors. But then when you see the hacky shows on networks and you see the way people's hair and makeup is, it tells me it's not a serious production. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, if they're so concerned with this person looking like this, then it tells me they're not thinking about the right things.
Now, if we were to like zero in, you're in scrubs or sweats.
Or sweats, or any ill form, a shift, a giant tunic.
Right.
It can be
Is
like
it
a muumuu.
hospital show? I mean,
No, definitely not. I don't want it to be a medical procedure.
Okay, all right.
That's why I say scrubs is just and like, or it can be sweats or anything. Giant sweatshirt, a giant sweatshirt, sweatpants.
What would the environment be? I mean, what would in terms of the show?
It could be anything.
But
anything.
I mean, if you had a choice, would you want to be a fake lawyer, fake, doctor?
No,
I mean,
I don't want to be a fake. It's been done. There's plenty of fake lawyers and doctors, therapists, and also that's the only things that are offered to me over the last years is tough but fair district attorney, judge that's had it up here with you already, sexually ambiguous cop, the hard ass therapist, the head nurse, crusty head nurse. Fuck that. Don't want any of that. It's not interesting to play. It's been done. And the world doesn't need another legal or medical procedural on these shows. Another cool cop series where people wear their badges around their neck and gray jeans. I have no interest in that. So any other thing besides what I just mentioned is fine with me. Any other vocation, if one must choose.
I heard this apocryphal story once. I don't know if it's true. That's why I say apocryphal. Of I can't believe I'm flaking on the actor's name right now. He was in 48 Hours, opposite
Nick
Eddie
Nolte.
Nick Nolte. That he only wore scrubs around Hollywood for a period of time to remind himself how close he was to going crazy and being in a mental institute. And I don't know if it's true.
I would have no way of knowing. That sounds like it could both be true and apocryphal. So I don't know.
What about a Dangerous Minds type show where you're working with young kids who, got an edge, but you like it? All right.
It's fine. Why does it? You're trying to force things into a structure.
I know.
So it's I don't know what the show is. I don't know. It doesn't have to be anything. I guess I'll know it when I see it. And it would be, like I said, the main thing, walking distance from the apartment, and it can be a long walk, not before 2 in the afternoon, preferably every other day, and I'm willing to work on weekends. It's just as long as it's every other day.
I mean, it was fun working on John Glazer's Delocated.
That's really fun. Yeah, those are the rare things, and that's what that was perfect for me because I could walk there. Love John Glazer; those guys are super funny. Love the show. That's a dream. Is stuff like that. Is doing that kind of thing. Now, I wish I wasn't playing a hard ass, but it is what it is. I was just happy that John wanted me to participate in the show. I'm not pleased a lot of times when people are like, you're going to be playing the hard ass. It's like even people that know me and have known me for years still wind up typecasting me. And they're not doing it facetiously. And I don't feel comfortable saying, do I have to be the hard ass? It's not interesting. So even though I love Delocated, love that show, and love doing that job, the least interesting part was my part in it because I was just the network executive hard ass. So that's a drag sometimes, but I was thrilled to be there, and I wish I could do more seasons of that.
Yeah, it was a fun time. It was fun. Well, we got a chance to hang out a little more on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love to. I don't want you to hurt your back. I can
no,
it's
okay, but it's okay. But I do feel like I'm reaching the limit of. I actually have this entire time talking, and it's actually a testament to two things. A, I like talking to you, but B, I talk too much. I've been in the same position the entire time, and my hand has been holding the bottom half of the phone too. So I'm losing sensation in my fingertips.
Oh my God,
I don't know why. I haven't even thought to put this down. How long have we been?
What?
And we've only been talking. Oh, we've been talking almost an hour and a half, Ollie.
I don't know. But so when this is done, you're going to go back and you're going to start doing stand-up again.
Yeah,
of
course.
What do you think that? I mean, do you have any sense of like what that world looks like with the social?
Well, believe it or not, I've been writing. I have material because I've certain things that have occurred to me about that's happened. Not like pandemic material, but just certain things that I may be able to use later. What will be weird is everybody talking about it as a stand-up and probably saying the same things. So so what one must do is deny those instincts to discuss it unless you have a unique perspective or something that isn't fatiguing to keep discussing about it. It will be so great, though, and such a relief to be back doing for everybody in the audience and the people on stage. Everybody will be happy to feel that normalcy. But also what will be a drag is having to be the same conversation with everyone again. So what'd you do? How'd you, almost like it's Monday at work. What'd you do this weekend? So, you know what I mean? Like you're going to have to go through that, the same conversations over and over, especially with people that are sort of more acquaintance than friend, that you haven't been talking to. There's going to be a lot of small talk to get through, which is kind of a drag.
But I mean, you wrote a show out of this, so do you have more than the pilot episode of this?
Yeah, I have a number of episodes. I mean, like I said, this is it's not finite. As long as it may be something I continue to do always, and it's not the first time I've done this type of thing. I have other series I have written over the years that are in drawers that no one will ever see. That I have just done just for the sake of doing it and because I enjoy doing it. Then there's been some that never made it past the development stage over the years, and network notes became too much, or or the idea was not purchased, whatever. That I have then continued on my own as an exercise of, well, if we could have, I've done that. So I've a number of things like that. This is probably the most 7-day-a-weekish of them. Do you know what I mean? Because there's been no notes coming back or waiting or anything like that. So this can go on and on. I may never stop doing it. Who knows? It's just, like I said, just an exercise and something that I enjoy. And it's already ridiculously long. It's just pages and pages and pages and pages. Because there's no editing. There's no one to question it. There's no anything.
And you write by hand, but then
I write by hand, longhand.
You type it up after?
Well, that's another. I have Anne, the person I did the last project with. She didn't mind typing. Taking the pages and typing it just because she's fast at it and she's good, and she was willing to do that. Now I wouldn't wish that on anyone, and she didn't have to because I have before paid people. Would you mind typing this? But also there's an issue with the format and the software. It has to be in a certain format for the scripts and stuff. And even though I write that longhand, what it's supposed to look like for them, it seems to not translate when they're typing it. But it's an issue. It's certainly an issue, and I am fully aware of it, and I am not proud of it, and I know that it bothers certain people, and I've a billion times over the years when I collaborate say to people, if at any time you would like to stop collaborating with me, please stop. I understand it, and so far they haven't, and or it's at some point where they're willing to move forward with the network and the notes, and I am not. That's where we part ways. Because there's certain notes that I'm not willing to give in on. Or certain things like, well, why would we do that? Or that's just a stupid note, or that makes it worse, or this is getting worse. Then I will walk away from it, where sometimes other collaborators will keep going forward because it's not as problematic for them. Because they have other concerns. They have homes and mortgages and kids and things like that.
If you had something to say to like a young 19-year-old out there right now, showing up wherever, New York City or Chicago or LA or Boston, doing stand-up and getting into it, what would you tell like a younger version of yourself, maybe that might help them?
Just if it was a version of myself, I would say the drinking. First and foremost, the drinking, and then secondly, when opportunities come. Don't
right.
do it to such a degree And then I would say, secondly, when you get opportunities, don't take them so lightly. You know what I mean? Like this, it's important to take this seriously. That this audition or that or this job, I would say that those two things. Other than that, I think my instincts, stand-up wide and stuff, were pretty good. But those two other major things in the world of acting, because I had not really intended on making acting the focus, and I didn't know the drinking was going to get out of hand. So those two things, which became a huge problem, I didn't anticipate them at 19.
Well, hopefully I'll get a chance to see you in the real world again soon. Or if you ever, maybe I'll text you or you can text me and take a walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and see
As long as we stay 5 feet apart. Well, the Brooklyn Bridge is not ideal because it's usually super crowded. Although at this time it might not be. And having said that, the Williamsburg Bridge, absurd on a sunny day. Manhattan Bridge is always your best bet.
Well, a bridge of some kind.
The least, and then the 59th Street Bridge is difficult because it's so narrow, and there's so many bikes now. The 59th Street Bridge did not anticipate as many motor scooters, electric bikes. They are not set up at all for the pedestrian flow and the bikes.
I'll text you and say walk ? Is this a bad time to walk?
Is this a bad time to walk? Now that's your show. That's my show. That's the one I want with Scrubs. You can take the credit, but that's the one I want. Is this a bad time to walk?
I'd rather have a percentage of something than 100% of nothing. First of all, thank you. I mean, I know you don't like compliments, but I can't tell you how lucky I feel to know you and be able to talk to you on a rainy Sunday afternoon in the pandemic, and how talented I think you are and cool you are. And
thank you. I think the same of you. Thank you.
And I thank you for being willing to talk to me on, is this a bad time to talk? AKA, I'm here to listen. But hopefully this recorded. And again, I don't even know if it's recorded or if it'll be posted. But I know. But
it's like my writing for me. It's I'm writing a show that no one will ever see.
Right. And to me, even the next day, Fred Weller emailed me or texted me. He was like, "Look, I don't even know if that recorded, but I had a great conversation." And then Reed Birdie and I talked for 2 hours on a Friday night. But it just feels for me something to do to make something out of this chunk of time, which just seems crazy.
No, it's fine, and it's making very good use of your time.
Well, thank you, JG, Janeanne.
Thank you.
I hope to see you soon. I will text you someday soon about, is this a bad time to walk?
Fine. and I'll answer that text.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful Sunday afternoon.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow. That was Janeanne Garafolo. So fun. I mean, and I could have talked for I had so many questions about so many different things, but I just didn't want to keep her too long. I mean, we'd spoken for almost an hour and a half, but I mean, we both worked at Saturday Night Live. I wanted to talk about that. And, I don't know, New York City in the 90s and the alt movement and Air America. And, maybe she'll give me a chance to talk to her again about all those other things. But I feel lucky that I get a chance to talk to her. It's rainy Sunday afternoon in New York City, April 26th, 2020, in the midst of the global pandemic. And, if you're listening to this thus far, thank you. Please check out thepit-nyc.com to check out online classes and hopefully soon classes in the real world and shows in the real world. I thank you for listening. I thank you for spreading the word. I got a chance to hear me talk to Janeanne Garafolo on my old-timey phone on this Tape a Call app, which, I don't know, hopefully it works out. So good night, sweet dreams, or good morning. Have a good day. Have a nice afternoon. Wherever this may find you, I hope you are healthy. If you're not healthy, I hope you get healthy. And I hope once you get healthy, you stay healthy and appreciate your health. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this, whatever this is, whatever this will be. That was Janeanne Garafolo talking for a chunk of time. So much fun, so much learned. All right. Bye-bye. Until we meet again.
Thanks for listening to Global Comedy Studios. Is this a bad time to talk? Stay tuned for more.